Very interesting topic, and I can't wait to hear what this is about based on this graphic. I don't want to understand what that transaction was about. All right, so definitely go ahead and share your name, your brand, and where you're located. And like I said, the floor is yours.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'll begin by introducing myself and yes, reiterating that was not my company who
Love it.
placed placed that comment on Facebook. But good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shariffa Spicer. I am the proud business owner of Spice of Life Design, hence the name Spice as my last name. And I wanted to talk to you today about, yes, handling that irate customer and how do we go about it by using best practices and most useful techniques. And interesting enough, I did want to get into sharing examples, but I did want this call to be an interactive one. It is a rainy day here in what should be sunny Florida, but it's a rainy day here. And so I wanted to shed some sunlight to you all. And so I did want to take my time during this session and really, like I said, be interactive. I wanted to get feedback from other callers, experiences that have taken place with them and perhaps within their business. So we can really delve into what are some healthy steps to take when it comes to meeting that customer who is extremely irate. And we don't just wake up in the morning, and this is an understanding that is very important. Most people do not just wake up in the morning and decide that they're going to be irate to someone today. And what happens is oftentimes when people come to either a restaurant or a counter or to a business owner, they are not only dealing with what we would see as a presenting problem, but we also have to understand and recognize that there are underlining problems and issues that that particular person is going through or experiencing, which brought them to our attention. So, again, a little bit about me, my background. I've been in the social service field for, I guess, since I earned my master's degree as well as my bachelor's degree at proud Tuskegee University. And at Tuskegee is where I pledged Delta Sigma Theta. So I am celebrating my 32nd year of being a part of that beautiful organization. And as we mentioned on the prior call, my business has too gone through some transition where I am still an interior designer. However, a branch of my company has changed into doing crafting. And that change took about, or that transition took place, I would say roughly 5 years ago. This September, if not next weekend, it'll be 5 years. And oftentimes, when you are making products that are handmade, you will be getting into issues of people scrutinizing your work far greater than what is produced perhaps with a machine. Okay. And then there are lens for errors because I am not a machine. I am human, and crafting is nothing but creativity through your own God given talents. And so, having said that, I'm going to, like I said, I want to talk to you a little bit about being a successful business owner when you are meeting or faced with that customer. Most oftentimes, people want an immediate fix, they want an immediate answer, and they want it now, and they want it on their terms. But what happens is oftentimes the way that it is relayed to us as business owners, sometimes, which is not the correct approach, we take offense to what is being said. And I think the very first step, which is extremely crucial in resolving conflict, is making sure that we do what? We listen. We listen. And everybody's mindset of listening is totally different. We have what is called active listening, and then we have what is I'm hearing you. And they're actually, by definition, two different, unique uh, definitions, terminologies. When you are actively listening to someone, you are your eyes, your body, everything is affixed on that individual, and you're really interested and engaged as to what they are saying. And that is a very first key, most important aspect of trying to resolve an issue is listening to the customer. Um, what happens is when we are listening, oftentimes, or when we think that we're listening, oftentimes what we're doing is already formulating an answer, already coming up with a defense in the back of your mind of why this person is wrong. But active listening puts those things to a side. Active listening means that we lean into the person's conversation. We ask probing questions, and we really want to search and understand what the issue was and why they are coming to you with what they feel is a mishap or a problem. And so once we do that, we understand quite naturally the situation. We can understand by asking questions. And I wanted to talk a little bit about an experience before we go into any of the points. So we already know that active listening is very key. It's very crucial in order to better understand and engage our customers. But there was something that happened to me recently, and I pride in not making errors in work. I am very detailed. You can see the passion in my pictures, but you can definitely see that I am a one about my and I have room for failure is what I hold myself to. However, this week I made a fail. And I'll admit that the failure was spelling someone's name in wood. There is no way that you can correct somebody's name being spelled wrong when you have carved it in wood. And so, what the options are, okay, sometimes it does when you're talking to customers, sometimes it's not so, just throw an answer out there to try to fix the problem. Sometimes and oftentimes, customers want to be heard. Not only do they want to be heard, they want to know that you are genuinely listening to them. Again, it goes back to my first point about active listening. And so not throwing in an immediate, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do, they want to hear they want you to understand how what the problem is went wrong or went awry. And so my point is I was approached and said that the design was absolutely beautiful. And she says, just one small detail, my name was spelled wrong. Well, most people are not going to just say, well, I'll just advertise it anyway. No, she wants it right. So as I said to her, let me take some time, if you don't mind, let me get back to you in a couple of hours on how I can actively resolve this for you. Well, I knew one resolution, as an example, was to have to pay for a return shipping label and then ship the design back to me for me to take the time to recreate a piece that could cover up that area, that it would be meticulously covered up, and then I could ship it back to her. Now, would she be pleased with the outcome? Quite naturally, yes, she would, because it would be meticulously covered up. However, then to me as a business owner, there's two costs that I just lost out on. That was shipping it for me to pay for her to have it shipped to me, and then for me to then return it to her. Well, I decided that that wasn't going to be good enough, because what happens is as business owners, our reputation is always at scrutiny. It is always up for judgment. And we do not, as much as I try to explain to people, you do not want bad publicity around your company, around your name, around your product, around your brand. And I'll say that again, you do not need bad publicity. And I say that because bad publicity spreads much faster and runs more deep with people, believe it or not, than good publicity. So knowing that you're up against that, you need to, as business owners, to make things correct. So when I called her back, I decided that this was my approach. It may not have been everybody's approach, but because I always, as a business owner, I always want to earn your business and your future business. So what I chose to do was to tell her to keep the design and that I would make another design for her. And in the back of my mind, I said, man, that first design is going to be a total waste. I took my heart, my time, and my energy to make such a beautiful piece, and it's still spelled wrong. So what I chose to do in this case was to still make the piece that slides up and covers that false area or that incorrect flaw that I made. I gave her a piece that was going to cover that area. And plus, I'm sending her a design with her properly spelled name on it. Now, why did I jump through hoops? Which some of you, Shariffa, I'm not going to do that. The reason why I chose to do that for several reasons. Number one, it's not going to cost me 2 shipping labels. Okay. Is it going to cost me my time? It will, but I would rather, where I am in business, I would rather lose a little bit of material versus that of losing the money. Okay. So what I've chosen to do is to make the piece that slides over it. And instead of it saying her name, of course, I'm going to put Delta Sigma Theta over that piece, and she'll be able to slide it up and correct the existing design that she has. I hope you're following me. And then what happens is I'm going to give her another design with her name, and it's going to be spelled correctly this time. Why did I do that? Number one, when I listened to her, she sounded like, and this is me understanding my customer, it sounded like that she was someone who, if I did not fix the problem, she was going to share it with others. Now that's not what she said to me, but that's always a possibility that you're running that risk. What I did is if I chose that if you're going to say anything about Spice of Life design, it's going to be something positive. So by me sending her a cover up piece for the existing design that she has, plus her design, that means she's going to gift, as she told me, I already know who I'm going to gift this design to. So she's going to gift the design to someone else. That means with all my insignia on the back of that design, she's going to market my business to someone else, and she's happy about how I resolved the issue. Okay, so having said that, when we're presented with problems from customers, and let me ask this, does anybody have any questions based on what it is that I said so far? Because I don't want this to be a session by which I'm talking the entire time. I want everyone to really, engage in our conversation.
Hey, I think people are really just kind of shouting you out in the chat, and so no questions just yet, but just some comments and what you did. And I was waiting to get to the end. It was kind of what we mentioned earlier when I was doing a video production and sending DVDs to people, and they would complain, even though I know they had an old DVD player. And they, oh, it won't play. Okay, fine. Don't send anything back. Let me just send you a replacement. And I would send them like 3 free shows or something in addition to that. Because to your point, I need to control that feedback narrative ahead of time, because that's worth gold. So I love that that's the approach that you took. And more people need to hear all the thought that went into your decision. Right. So,
and I'm intrigued. So therefore, that's why you don't hear me. I'm fascinated. I'm listening.
And the thing about it is, I, as a business owner, it's honestly me, myself, and I don't mean from, that song back in the 80s when, they used to sing just me, myself, and I. Well, it really is. And so everything is, buck stops with me. So when it's errors, it's on me. When I'm delayed or anything like that, which doesn't happen, again, I just say it's all on me. So there's no talking to someone else or talking to a supervisor. I believe that everyone's presentation with an issue is different. Okay, so let's put it that way. We have this terminology that floats around so freely nowadays about, people who want to be Karens and Kens and things of that nature. Not everybody who comes to you with a problem is going to be escalated to that level. So it's important, number one, to gauge where that person is. What is the problem? Can it be something that's easily resolved? And oftentimes when you're listening to them, they offer what their satisfied resolution to the issue may be. However, that there comes those customers sometimes who to offer, I want my money back. Well, that may not always be, case. As business owners, we may not offer that based on our business policies and practices. We may not offer that immediately. But what we should do as business owners is not only get the feedback from them as to how they want it to be resolved, but also we could offer 2 solutions as well. And I think that sometimes people say, oh, multiple solutions. Well, multiple solutions is a lot. My thing to you is I'm going to offer you 2 solutions with Spice of Life design. Okay. And then you offer one. And then what we're going to do is come to the table and amicably decide on which one or how we're going to blend this idea of resolving the issue. Because ultimately you want somebody to walk away with a feasible answer that satisfies them, that makes them happy. And I think that too, oftentimes, we get into this mindset, and again, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier in the call that my background, my master's degree is actually in ADR. ADR is alternative dispute resolution. So I have my master's degree in professionally knowing how to diffuse conflict and issues. Okay. And so having said that, a lot of times people get met with conflict, and conflict, it just kind of bogs their mind, and it's negative, and it's you're arguing and raising voices, and conflict is not always on a negative wavelength. Conflict is actually healthy, because what happens with conflict, we're recognizing that you have two or more individuals that have different processes of thinking. They have different backgrounds, they have different experiences. So when we talk about conflict, conflict could actually be healthy in that once you hear from both parties, or once you hear from both sides, there is a middle ground that you all, if you're both willing, you can both come together with a healthy resolution that could resolve the problem within a matter of minutes. But when you come, another best practices is that when you do come to that resolution, make sure you follow through. Make sure you carry out that plan, and also give that person the time frame by which you will resolve the issue. Now, don't say, oh, I'm going to handle this immediately tomorrow, and then say, okay, I'm going to put it in the back burner. In the back of your mind, I already got their money and it's not important. As a business owner, you shouldn't have those mindsets anyway when you're interacting with people, but it is very important to prioritize what is going on. Okay, I don't care what time frames and timelines that you have that are already on your plate. Okay, it is important that if something has gone out and something is wrong, we need to deal and address it immediately. Just to kind of sway our mindset from product failures, I want to talk a little bit about counter interactions. And I don't mean counter interactions as going in a circle. I mean counter, like, for example, if we were at a fast food restaurant, oftentimes what I think that both parties don't recognize, for example, is that as a customer, when I go to a restaurant, a fast food restaurant, for example, the person across the counter is not realizing that my underlying issues is that of hunger. And when we're hungry, and when we're having fatigue, and there's other, underlying circumstances that are going on with us, oftentimes we're not thinking straight. We want something, we want it quickly, we want it fast, we want it hot, we want it our way. Okay. Well, we're talking to someone who's across the counter from us, and they have their own underlying issues. Okay. They've been on their feet for already 6 hours. They're already thinking about clocking out because they're tired. They're ready to just move on with just get you out of the way and move on to another customer. So when you have these two different parallels happening with each other, quite naturally, miscommunication and engagement is not necessarily going to be at its highest or at its tier level. So once we recognize that, okay, everyone that comes to me is going to be hungry, I need to handle them. I wouldn't necessarily say use the term kid gloves, but it is very essential and very important for people to understand that you're not always going to get that happy-go-lucky customer. And they're not going to always come in, state their order, and then move to the side. There are some people who are genuinely unhappy people. And I say that in the sense that nothing can, in some cases, please them. And when you're met with that type of person, it's important to understand that personality and how to interact with that personality. Once you understand that person, you have to sometimes, which is very healthy for all of us, as another best practice is, take a deep breath, do not personalize it, and take your time and be slow to respond. Anytime that we are slow to respond, we are allowing ourselves, also with a deep breath, to have a clear head. If we don't take things personal and understand, okay, this person is standing at the counter for a reason. Why? They're trying to get food. And because they're getting food, they're hungry. They may be at the end of the day, it's 5 o'clock. Take all those situations and take those, circumstances, as you would call them, into consideration when you're dealing with people, because oftentimes that person at the counter is their first point of contact. Okay. So when you're speaking to them, again, use positive language. You're listening to them. You're trying to understand their situation. And the best thing to do, most importantly, is once you hear them, Don't ask them, okay, are you done? Are you finished talking? Those are triggers for people because that's not our positive language. That's not how we want to go about resolving issues. We always want to make sure that we're dealing with positive, healthy discussions, comments, and things that are showing empathy in our discussion. Once they are finished, and we'll genuinely know they're finished because we've asked questions, we've done the attending skills by looking at them, not being distracted when we're talking to them. Repeating what they say oftentimes is also important. But once we understand what their problem is, that's when we present some solutions. Okay. The solutions, like I said earlier on, oftentimes they are going to suggest how to make it right. But then once they do that, you can repeat. So I understand, Shariffa, or you could say, I understand. I would say, so I understand, Karen, that you would like to have this issue to resolve the problem. Am I correct? Once you get the validation from them, you would either agree to that and say, you know what, I have something better for you. I want to offer you this or this as options. Clearly state that this is option B or this is option A. And I'm asking you, which one do you prefer? Because honestly, when they offer suggestions, sometimes their suggestions are an easier fix than what we would offer as a suggestion. And it may cost less than what we would offer. So by listening to them first, seeing what their suggestion is, then we offer our two. And it's at this time that together we would work to resolve or to work together to see how that this person can be satisfied in getting their either their product or their food or whatever the situation is. So, and it's and through that, of course, when they're hearing you, they're also building trust in you. Because again, the mindset as a business owner is, I want a repeat customer. The repeat and loyal customers by far are you going to be your best customers. So the term that many times people use is burning bridges. You don't want to do that. You don't want to have that happen to you. So at this point, I'm just going to open it up to anybody who has any dialogue or any questions. I'm going to look in the chat to see if there was anything else that was said.
Now, for the immediate situations that occur, we've had customers at times, rings of customers who are known for always causing havoc or always wanting a refund or a replacement. And we've even in No Yazon in the Creamery have caught rings of SOARs or D9 members. They have an MO. One complains and others who complain on this vendor. And then next month, it's a whole new vendor who's under attack, and they're getting refunds and they're getting replacements. What do we do in those situations? And I know that's kind of off topic from what you were talking about, but we do have rings of people who are known for getting refunds and replacements and spreading bad news.
Right. I can understand that. And when we're faced with those type of customers, it's very tricky. Okay. And I've had one or two like that. But what happens is you still undergo the steps that I was suggesting. Let me and I want to just touch base before I answer that question. I want to go back to the post. As I mentioned earlier, that negative publicity or negative advertising or negative reputations or any negative comments that are said about a business really does breed and move much faster nowadays than having healthy comments or shout out posts and saying, hey, this is a great design that someone has made for me. First priority, get in contact with them. No emails, pick up the phone. Okay, no text messaging. I say that to my customers all the time. Look at me. I'm not a millennial. I don't do all the text messaging. I am old school. I want that touch and feel. I am not untouchable. I want people to reach out to me directly as well as I would reach out to people in this manner. And it is far gone the time period where she just needs to send an email. That's over and done with. This needs to be more personal. Now, going back to your point about that repeat habitual, let's call it habitual consumer that wants a freebie. you're going to you're going to understand that person. You're going to know that behavior. It's going to ring all types of bells and whistles when it happens. And again, you still take the same steps, but you stick to your business policies as to what your return policy is.
Yeah.
Just recently, I had a customer reach out to me and I was flattered. She purchased a purse from another vendor, and she reached out to the vendor and told him that she was having problems with the pocketbook. So they shipped her another pocketbook, and you better believe the same issues occurred with that same pocketbook. And she says, as opposed to going back to the vendor, she chose someone and told her, if you have anything with woodworking, go to Shariffa with Spice of Life Design. She will definitely know how to resolve the issue. And I told her I would. And so some people, that's her just accepting fault with the product. And she was not willing to keep going back and giving more and more. In that particular situation, the vendor should have recognized and should know at that point, your product has a defect. And when you're dealing with products that you knowingly are aware are having defects, number one, you should pull the product off your site. You should not sell it to anyone else. Okay. Secondly, get with the customer and ask them, how would you like this to be resolved? In this case, she chose not to. She says, 2 more pocketbooks. You can give me 3 or 4 pocketbooks. They're all going to do the same thing. And when I assessed it, when I received the 2 pocketbooks in the mail, it would never have been repaired because of the quality of the wood that was on the pocketbooks. So what she did is she's chosen to pay me to fix it. And that's more money for her out of pocket. But she was choosing to make it right in such a way that there were no more problems with the purse, so she can use it. Speaking to the repeat customer who's the complainer, we do have to let me be honest with you. I have a list. I have a personal list that I keep of, I have 2 lists, and my husband laughs at me. I have a list of customers that I will not sell to,
Mm.
and I do have a list of customers who are those habitual complainers. I mean, those are people who, no matter what, are never going to be satisfied. And once you recognize that, that is when you say, I'm offering these 2 suggestions. And if you are not willing, really, and you just put your foot down, if they are not willing to accept one or two of the 2 offers that you offer, and they still are demanding their money, then you have to say, okay, I'm not willing to do that. This is what I'm willing to do. Put your foot down, be firm about it. This is what I'm willing to offer you. And then just to see what the outcome is. But I think that what happens is if we find ourselves buying into this, that only encourages that behavior. If we just say, oh, just give her the product to shut her up or to quiet her down, that is not always the answer, because you just reinforced her behavior to continue to perpetuate that with not just necessarily you as a vendor, but other vendors as well. And that doesn't need to be across the board a problem for other vendors to have to contend with.
That's great, because, and like you said, stick to your policy, have a clear set policy on your website. That same policy needs to be on your invoices as well, because people will try you as well. So that's great. As one caveat, I would like to say, with the vendor who that we put the posts up as an example, she's a sweetheart, but we all have our days as well. And she did admit that she had some missteps and all, but we learn from them. That's a part of our growth and all. So
Right.
she doesn't go out to scam people, and she doesn't go out to scam her customers. I know that for a fact. She's a pure sweetheart. And I hated that happened to her, but it's a learning lesson for all of us as well when we get to that one type of customer, because they are totally pissed off.
Right.
And social media can go far and beyond. And
Absolutely.
some people don't come back to see what the resolution was. All they remember is what they saw. And we don't want that happening to any of the vendors.
Hey, let me just chime in here, because I'm just listening and I'm thinking about all of those moments where I had, because I like to think of myself as someone who's not really that customer who vendors don't want to see. I spend all of my time trying to promote Black-owned businesses, right? But there are a lot of times when people made me feel as though they did not value my business, and even gone to the point where I was feeling like they didn't even respect me as a person. And so I always take note of those. I try to record some details, and I just notate that because like in the previous session, I gave Walmart as an example when I was returning a product, and I was just listening to the interactions between the customer service associate and the people in front of me, and it was like applying for an SBA loan or something. When you didn't have all it was like, man, they are trying their best to say no to everybody. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to do the opposite. First of all, because I want to protect my reputation. I felt like my reputation was my best product.
That's right.
And that if and I'm glad you mentioned that you should treat your customers based on your values, not the value of the product they're purchasing, right? So that's my takeaway from that, because you just never know who's watching. I'm at a step show in Philadelphia, and I had somebody, just stranger, come up to me saying, "Hey, look, I want to purchase something," and I was busy. I'm swamping. I'm going back and forth, and I'm glad that little voice, that little angel, said, "Take a breath. Hey, how can I help?" And it actually ended up being a senior vice president for Sprite who offered me like $1,000 for a copy of that tape because they wanted to show their marketing team. And I was like, oh, okay, great. And same way with the David Letterman conversation. And I was like, okay, because I got that call and I was like, oh man, I don't feel like dealing with this. Why are these people bugging me? And I'm just being transparent. That's what came to my mind. That's what I was feeling and dealing with. But at the same time, I just became wired to, hey, how's it going? It's Eric with StepShows.com. How can I help you? And I didn't know it was David Letterman on the phone, but man, I think you need to understand when you need to just close the shop. If you're going through some stuff that is affecting the quality and the level of service you can put into your whole product or workflow, maybe you need to just take a break. Maybe instead of Friday, you need to pick this up on Monday, because all of that is going to translate into what your customer is receiving. And you don't have enough resources to fight to compete with the speed of their influence when it comes to telling their circle what just happened to them.
Well, let me stop you for a second. And I'm gonna laugh with you for a second. I don't want anybody's takeaway on this call to say, Eric told me to take a weekend break off. Eric told me to take a couple of days off from your complaint. So I'll get back to you when those days are over. I don't want anybody to think, no, because I got into it. I kind of touched on it earlier, but I didn't say it very poignant. I want to make the point to say, they also don't want to hear your excuses, frankly. And I think that has to be you can't say, well, we're shorthanded. I don't care. I wasn't shorthanded when I paid you my money. Well, we're out of the office today. They don't want to hear that, or they're short staffed, or whatever. There's many of excuses. First of all, I can't use the excuse I'm short staffed. It's just me. Okay. I can't take time. And I know for me too, and this is me coming up to understand why I have issues sometimes, like for example, with this customer. My issue, and the product doesn't always go out to that the customer sees it's my issue. But one of my greatest issues, and I'm working on, and being able to recognize that as a business, we have a problem. My problem is I don't have enough hands. And the underlining issue with me is oftentimes when I'm making designs, it's 3:00 in the morning. It's 4:00 in the morning. It's 5:00 in the morning. And I don't want to relay that to my customer to say, well, your name was spelled wrong because I was off in the middle of your project. That's not what they want to hear. And truth be told, I wouldn't have said it that way, but I do know for me personally, Shariffa, you screwed that up that time because it was 3:00 in the morning. It was 4:00. And with quality control, you need to get it right. That is not something that is, number one, acceptable. Number two, that needs to be admitted publicly, but I just see this as a limited number of people on the call, so I can say it to you all. But first and foremost, it should not be reiterated or resounded in the product that you lend forth. Okay. So what I'm saying is giving an excuse for why something is happening is not what the customer wants to hear. They want to hear that it's going to be fixed. It's going to be fixed quickly. It's going to be fixed with quality, and it's going to be fixed in a manner that they are going to be pleased. That's ultimately what needs to take place. And someone I saw in the comments said, keep your receipts. That is true, true, true. I had somebody actually, she argued with me that this design that she had, I couldn't believe it. Argued with me that there was a design that they received that was mine. And I'm trying to explain to her, I did not make that product. And as she just tells me over and over, insisting, because number one, I said, I don't even know you from Adam. I've never made a design for someone under that name. But when I was able to show her, when she looked and showed me what her product was, I said to her, this is not even my design. It doesn't have my insignia on the back. It doesn't have my autograph on the back. Everything proved that I didn't make it. But again, when the person in the chat said, keep your receipts, that's true. She tried to tell me that it was my design. And what happened was her husband actually looked at my design and asked his woodworking friend to take my very same design and recreate the design. And he did. He tried his best to recreate my design and showed and gave it to his wife. And his wife wasn't pleased. Why? Because it wasn't Spice of Life design. And she came back to me and wanted it to be corrected and fixed. But I wasn't willing to fix something that was someone else's design altogether that they stole from me. Hence, I didn't want to add that part of it. But yes, she really was insistent that I needed to take the design back because it did not look like the pictures that she saw online.
That is something else. And yeah, and that's something that we've discussed previously, where people take people's designs. But one of the great takeaways that I got was that as business owners, do not give an excuse as to why.
Right.
Whatever happened. Don't say because we were in convention or conference season, or we were away from office. Just keep that out the vocabulary with the customer. And I think that's what happened with our vendor, where she said that we were short-staffed or we had a changeover. Just keep that out and just go straight to the meat of the problem, saying, how can I make this better? Or how can we fix it? And give me a day or whatever, how many days in order to fix it.
But make sure you fix it, Angelica. Make sure you fix it. That is the key. Is being I call it a woman of your word. Okay. I emphasize, even when I'm vending in my booth, that everything is Sora crafted, handcrafted with these hands, Sora crafted. And so my mindset is I'm going to treat you sisterly. Okay. Not everybody has that same mindset. Okay. But to be able to know that if you treat people in the same manner by which you wish or desire to be treated, then resolution is going to come about. It will ultimately.
And yes, and that's right. And you want to make sure you're right on it, because you have fire fingers nowadays. Fire fingers. You used to have jazz fingers and jazz hands. Now we got fire fingers on the keyboard, and they're going to tell some great things about you, or they're going to tell some negative things about you. But unfortunately, like you said, negative things spread faster and quicker than the positive.
True,
like
indeed.
I got a great cup from Spice of Life, as opposed to I got a cup where the handles fell off from Spice of Life. And guess what? Spice of Life doesn't even sell cups that I know of. But
no.
Oh my God.
Can I share?
Again, I was going to open it up to any questions if anybody has any questions.
I just want to share some feedback. That was awesome. Thank you so very much. And I wanted to see if you had any samples close by you so that you can share your product. Just show some of your work.
I have this piece right here. And okay, this is a prime example of a piece. One
Okay.
thing that customers don't understand is that with my designs, there oftentimes are tons of pieces in it. And again, it's all handmade, it's all hand painted. So, of course, every brush stroke, nothing is going to ever be exactly to the same. So that's another thing. When a customer says to me, Shariffa, I want exactly that wreath, I already tell them up front, you got to let them know, because I'm making it with my hands. There's nothing that I'm going to make that is going to be identical to the next. It's not humanly possible, but I will come as close as possible. This piece actually was and I wasn't going to sell it. This piece is a messed up design. Okay. This is messed up because I like to do this, I call them shop scraps. And I actually started an entire product line in because of shop scraps. Basically, shop scraps are pieces that I thought I was going to use on a design. And then I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to use it. So what happened is with this shop scrap, I actually messed up, and the mess up is on the back. Okay. So I engraved it improperly, and it didn't look the way that I wanted it to. Okay. It's not supposed to have these lines right here. So I said, well, Shariffa, flip it over and use the other side. Now, if someone says to me, Shariffa, I could care less if it has that on the back, but most customers don't want to see that on the back. They would opt for it not to be there. So this is a shop scrap that I made anyway. And I said, I'm going to keep it on my own door at home. I decided to actually use a different technique, which was something that I saw online. And I said, let me try it for myself. So I laid this backing on it, which I've never done before. And then I produced it the same manner by which I always do. But the problem again is this side.
Wow.
So if people say to me, well, I'll still buy that. And people will. They ultimately will. I will warn you ahead that it does look like that. But most of the time when it is hanging on someone's door like that, no one sits there and says, hey, girl, let me see the back of it. No one's going to look, on the underside of it. But my point is, these are the kind of products that I produce. And yes, sometimes the paint may bleed, or, the glitter may not be, I don't know, as shiny, but as excuse my word, but as anal as I am with my designs, I want to make sure that I scrutinize everything to a T. And I want to make sure that everyone, gets the quality that they do, even down, to the gems. So this is a piece that I have made.
Thank you for sharing.
I gotta say
Absolutely.
this because I love when preparation meets opportunity. And when someone says, hey, do you have anything? And all you got to do is turn around and say, I do. And then here it is. I mean, because if you had told me I was like, that's the one you're not selling. I think a lot of people would be thrilled to have that. But the other thing I'm saying is the creativity, because I don't see something that's just placed together or assembled. I see something that's actually crafted. And for a lot of people, so I know my wife is always flipping through and looking for interior design ideas. It is so simple. It is such a clutter-free background, what I'm looking at right now on the video calls. And so like if you're like me, where you're on a call like four days out the week, you want something, everybody can't be blurring backgrounds and finding the perfect. That's something I can just go into this space. I got something nice on the wall. It's professional. It's cool. It's simple. It doesn't get in the way. It doesn't interfere. It just complements the whole look. If you just look at your square right now, it is just such a nice presentation. And I got it. I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. And people are going to be remembering that, because how you put yourself together gives me an idea of how you put my products together.
Absolutely.
Turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor,
that's true.
Together, I won't eat that cake, So that's what it is, because we take the whole experience into account, not just what's served, but how it's served. And I, again, just thank you so much for sharing, because that's so important.
And one thing I would like to add for Shimona, she showed you that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to show you a picture of her set up at a convention or a conference, and you're going to see a big wall of her stuff, and you're going to be so like, what? It's beautiful. Her setup. I mean, I would like to just have that wall is in my house. I'm going to send a picture to Taylor for her to send it to you so you can see the gamut, the frame of her creativity. You will be so surprised. You're going to want to buy it.
Wow. Because
Love
It,
presentation is everything.
Oh,
it
yes,
is.
her
It is.
presentation is off the chain.
Well,
It's off
I
the
was I accept that compliment. Thank you so much. But I know that the things that, because I started it, my business, because of, it was a God gift. It was reasons, because it was started as a purpose in our family, and it has now blossomed into a business. But I was going to add to that, that it's overwhelming when you come to my booth. That is by far what everyone's feedback is. I think because when you see Omega Psi Phi, when you see Delta Sigma Theta, when you see other fraternities and sororities work etched in wood, it is not something that you've ever seen before. And so when you talk about creativity, and as Eric led onto it, that when you see it in pictures and you can see that someone has passion about it, but it's not just in the product, it also needs to be in the business sense and how you interact with people. One thing I learned as a CEO when I was working nonprofit was that relationship building is essential. It is key. I would much rather build a relationship with you than to sell a design to you. This right here is a design that cost $85. Okay. However, a relationship with someone is priceless, because that relationship could build and flourish into other aspects of life, and it could also expand your business sense. But I did want to say, just a quick plug, Eric, I do have Sigma things as well, Sigma designs as well. Absolutely.
Okay, let's talk. Okay, all right. I wasn't going to ask. I didn't want to put you on the spot, but we love collecting things, and I like collecting things that have a story, right? So, if I can say, hey, man, I have a relationship with this person. This person, I want to promote what this person is doing, and too many times we just say, okay, I'm just going to tell somebody. Well, no, you can't really tell the full story if you didn't go through the process, right? So if I actually purchase something from you, or I read your book if you're an author, which I always love to do, now I can speak organically, honestly, and transparently about the old experience. Hey, now I will tell you this. You can't come to her with some half-baked idea what you want, or whatever that is. I mean, and people appreciate that, because the people I'm talking to are people who trust me, right? And so
Right.
they're looking for new ideas and things like that. And I feel like that's how we're going to grow this village, right? We can get the Black Wall Street going. We got to start getting the real estate first, right? And we have to change our mindset, because one thing for me as an entrepreneur, one class I did not have was Black economics. We shop different. I'm telling you, and every region is different. I knew people, I was in the Memphis area, and you could have a brand new product for $100, but they will buy it from their hookup for $99 with no receipt and no warranty, because it's a penny cheaper. I mean, and so what are you going to do? Are you prepared for those moments, right? And
Right.
you have to really know who you are. I say know the market, but you have to really understand your process and what you're going to do, and what does quality customer service look like, right? So I love it. I love it. So bring on the Sigma stuff. I would love to take a look.
And thank you so much, Shariffa, for sharing those tips and those best practices for handling that irate customer.
Yep.
And
Sure thing.
as I've said again, sometimes we have our great days, and sometimes we just have those not so great days. And all of the vendors that I've experienced so far, when it comes to the premium Regalia zone, are genuine and forthcoming as well, and included with our vendor who was attacked online. We don't never want to see that happen again. So
That's true.
hopefully she can take some of those lessons to light, because even none of us are perfect. I mean, I made some faux pas myself, okay, but I had to face them. And also talk to my constituents and clients as to how I'm going to handle it as well. And like you said, don't give them my excuses. let's cater to what they're saying and what they're talking about and what resolve they're looking for. So thank you so much
You're welcome.
for your insights. And I'm going to send those pictures to everybody so they can see what I'm talking about. Here's my last question. Do you have a list of, now I know everybody comes to you, what you wrote this one. You got a list of grants for businesses. Like, we don't want loans. We just want grants that we ain't got to pay back. Can we come to you for a list of grants?
Monica, I actually received the same list. Monica, are you able to, how can we get the list of grants to them, Monica?
I could actually if you go on the site of let me go on here, hold on. Let me find the site now. It gave us all the ones for September. Hold on just a moment. Let me
So such a
try
list
to
does exist, you're saying.
Yes, actually, that list is powerful because it's actually for businesses all over the world, for people in other countries. Like you can truly share that list and really capitalize on some of the things that are
okay.
in there.
I'm gonna put it in the chat. I just found it. Um this is part of Bank of America. A lot of times, a lot of banks, well, this is really through Cornell University. The lady that is over the women's entrepreneur program,
Oh,
she sources out all the different grants. And why this website was created was because as a business owner, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, all these banks got in trouble a couple of years ago. So they had to offer different programs for entrepreneurs. And this is one of the, let me see, I'm trying to put it, yeah, I'm putting it in the chat now. This is a great site. The Cornell University certification of Women's Entrepreneur Certificate. They are on hold with the program, but you can still get on the waiting list. But this right here, you could go to the website and always look at the different fundings, and most of them are grants. Most of them are grants. Like I said, I've obtained like three of them thus far through the connection of me just completing this class. And you don't have to complete the class, but it shows you all the grants all over the world. And then also you could go on the SAM website of the government. And just to tell you something about what I've been doing, sometimes you have to think outside the box, okay? We are all vendors pretty much for some type of paraphernalia, Delta, Zeta, Omega. And if you're not, most of us are. But I had to think outside the box. Someone advised me, a marketing supplier diversity group told me I need to diversify a little to be able to get in this program that I'm apply for in November. And by saying that is you could go on the sam.gov website. There might be a contract that your business could source out. They might need 2,000 purple um I'm just saying this hoodies for the prism. If you could tame those 40 white hoodies or plain hoodies or those plain suits that the prison people wear. I'm just saying this because it is on there for something like that. Then you could get a contract through the SAM. You could apply for the contract through the SAMS.gov. So you have to sometimes diversify what you're doing. So if you're doing something with just paraphernalia, you might want to say, hey, I do have I can source out 1,000 hoodies. I need to see if I can get this grant. So that's thinking outside the box. So you can get grants that help your business also.
That's great because I've seen a grant or a RFP for ink pens one time.
Right.
Yeah, 20,000 ink pens, and all you had to do is drop ship, and so you can do it and then do the drop ship. So I'm glad to hear about
Right.
that.
And just like and if you right, and if you work together with somebody, it always don't have to be you. And I think that's where we fail to work together. We think, oh, if somebody have a same scarf or
Mhm.
something similar, oh, that's not right. I had it first. But I think somebody mentioned before, just like there's ketchup, there's different brands of ketchup, mustard. There was a hot dog. Now there's a link.
Yeah.
Um, if we work together, I also served on the technical reviewer board for the grants when we had the $100 million grant through Biden. I evaluated some of those grants, and we studied those grants for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. We were assigned to do 3 grants a day as far as reviewing them. Um, a lot of those companies that got those grants, they work with a lot of other small businesses. So you don't always have to be at the top. You can always partner with someone and still get your money.
Awesome.
And
And
we don't do that. We
yeah.
typically don't. But I tell people, if you have opportunity to
Mhm.
work with another group or another vendor to do something, I had a suggestion. I needed a purse strap. And as you know, I sell the purses, and I contacted somebody I knew that were doing the purse straps. So to me, you could work together.
Thing I do want to let you all know, the $1 billion round table, where there's an elite number of businesses who've joined it, and they pledge $1 billion a year. These are large corporations and companies to help out minority, especially minority women businesses. I will be sharing that in both the groups. Vernelia Zone, Advance Group, and the Vendors and Sellers Group. But it's called the $1 billion Roundtable, where you can ask for grants or requests for grants, not loans. That, of course, they don't have to be paid back for the development of your business. And you'll see who's on the list of the $1 billion Roundtable as well. So, first of all, I would like to thank everybody. We are going to now move to officially closing out the second annual Vendors Summit by Know Your Zone 2024. I'll be seeing you next year, and it's going to be after the conventions for sure, so we can chop it up and rehash and all of that great stuff. But I would like to also give a big hand and a thank you to Mr. Eric Tucker of Tucker Media. This beautiful platform that we're on is a result of him, using his services and resources and tools to make this happen today, because this normally would have been a Zoom call. But I do love this platform, Eric. I'm going to leave the floor to you, and then we're going to close out.
Well, the doors of the church are open and all that good stuff. So everything that needs to be said has been said. Shout out to you, Angelica, for making these types of moments possible and available and accessible to all the people in your marketplace. So, hey, we're only going to grow if we grow together. We can definitely do more together, and sharing this type of knowledge is what's going to get us there. So I look forward to the third annual. Sign me up. I want to make sure I'm in that place, in that space. So I can't wait. So, hey, if anybody has any questions for me, feel free to reach out. We'll be following up with a couple of emails for everyone who was in attendance.
And thank you to all of our presenters from today. Thank you for volunteering your time and your expertise and your insights to helping out the vendors. And also, I would like to thank our participating vendors who participated in today's discussion of the summit, those who were here physically, whether in spirit, and those who will be looking at the replays as well.